Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch, and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Susan, I'm your hostess, and today we're going to make some home canned vegetable soup, and I am going to change the recipe just a tad. I was reading up on it, and you can actually add whatever vegetables you want to your soup. And I'm going to be using the recipe out of the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving, and I will share that in a moment. But my husband recently ordered some stuff from Walmart, and we normally do not order and go pick up. Well, we went to pick up and only half the order was there. They shipped the rest of the order, which was cases of vegetables that we had ordered. And when we received it, we got things like this. Now, the seal's still good on the can. I checked that. Here's another one. It's got a big dent in the side. The seals have not been broken. I've checked this one. It's right there on the edge. And I've got several cans of corn and green beans that were dented in shipment. And the thing of it is I don't particularly care for using products that are dented. I know that they're safe as long as the seal on both ends are not compromised. This one was dented at the bottom, but I've checked and there's no leakage or anything, and it's still very good. So what I've decided is I'm going to take these and I'm going to add them to my vegetable soup recipe. Now the recipe does call for fresh corn or frozen corn. It's perfectly safe to use a canned vegetable like this and salvage it. Otherwise, these would either go into the trash or they would have gone to a food pantry. And I don't want to give something damaged like this to a food pantry. So, with that being said, I'm going to pull the book, I'm going to show you the recipe, and then we're going to get into all the ingredients. I have shared this book many times. This is the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. And the recipe I'm using is found on page 402. And I've made some notes down here for doubling the recipe and adjusting the recipe. And I have some fresh okra in my refrigerator, and I'm seriously contemplating putting the fresh okra in. You'll find out if I do that in this video. But we have already got all of our ingredients chopped. The only thing I've got to do is open up all these cans, get these drained, and ready to go into my rival roaster, because I do not have a big enough stock. Well, I do have a big enough stock pot. I probably should pull that out, but I don't want to do that. And I'm going to pressure can my soup. You do not hot water bath a vegetable soup. Now, I recently bought some from the Amish community, and when we opened it up, it surprised us that it's kind of on the sweet side. So I'm assuming that they hot water bath this and they added sugar to it to raise the acidity up. The soup is perfectly fine. It was just sweet, and it's not really something that we would want in our soup. So I won't be buying this one again from the Amish, but I'll be making my own. But we'll find other things to support them throughout the winter, because when their growing season's over, a lot of them will have their home canned goods up for sale, and you just go up and you put the money in their little slot and you buy whatever you want. They have an honor system there. They believe in the honor system, and we believe in being honorable and honest about what we're purchasing. Okay, I have decided to pull out Big Bertha. I'm looking at all these vegetables and I'm thinking this is not all going to fit into my roasting pan, so we are going to go over the recipe real quick, and then I'm going to let you know that I have doubled everything in this recipe. The recipe calls for 8 cups of cored peeled tomatoes, 6 cups of cube peeled potatoes, 6 cups of thickly sliced carrots, 4 cups of cooked lima beans, 4 cups of fresh or frozen corn kernels, 2 cups of sliced celery, 2 cups of chopped onions, and 6 cups of water, and then use salt and pepper to taste. And like I said, I'm doubling everything in this recipe. So that is the basic recipe, and you can find this book on Amazon. I'll try to remember to put a link to the book in my description box. I have 1 gallon of tomatoes. That's 16 cups of tomatoes. We're going to get this into our pot, and you can see I have halved most of them. We're going to use this bucket in a little bit to get our water. And I have diced all my onions. Now my lima beans are not completely cooked. I decided that I was going to get them almost done. Get the container to open up. I had a little trouble getting the container open, but I've partially cooked these. They're almost done, but they're not quite. And the reason I did that is because they're going to continue to cook in the soup. And it will help to thicken up the broth just a little bit. And this recipe is actually, I think, a vegetable stew. No, it says vegetable soup. One recipe I looked at said vegetable soup. The other one said vegetable stew. Now here's my corn. It's already been rinsed. That was 4 cans of corn. And you could actually cut back on the corn and add your green beans if you wanted to do it that way. And here is my green beans, and they look fine. You might want to pick through them just to make sure there's no stems in there, because you know canned green beans sometimes has stems, and I don't think these do. I don't see any stems in that. Now my potatoes have been sitting overnight. I've had them in water, and I added citric acid to keep them from turning. I'm just going to pour them over here in the colander to get all that water off of them. And I used red potatoes. That was actually the cheapest potatoes this store had. And that's my potatoes there. And I've got a sink full of dirty dishes now, y'all. And my last vegetable going in this, and maybe the okra, is the carrots. Let me rinse my hands. Now I haven't added the water to this. I haven't put any salt and pepper in this. I'm just going to show you what it looks like inside the pot. And that is quite a bit of vegetables in there, and I was afraid it was going to be too much for my roasting pan, and I'm glad I decided to do this. Now I'm going to add the 16 cups of water. I've got another 16 cups of tomatoes cut up. If I need more tomatoes in this, I can always add more. I will do this in quart jars. You can do it in pint jars. And because I'm adding more vegetables to it, I'm probably going to get more than what the recipe calls for. And I probably will be doing several batch cannings in my pressure canner, because my pressure canner only holds 7 quarts at a time. So we're going to get the water in here, and we're going to get this started. Okay, when you add extra vegetables to your soup and you're canning it, you want to make sure that your time on your canned product covers the time that these vegetables need to be in the canner also. And my first item was green beans, and they need to process for at least 20 minutes for a quart, so that's safe. And my next ingredient was okra, and okra you need to process quart jars for 40 minutes, which that would be also safe. And I'm going to let you know that I did double the amount of tomatoes and water. I went ahead and put in 2 gallons of tomatoes and 2 gallons of water in my stock pot, and it is about half full. So we're going to have quite a canning day ahead of us, maybe 2 days, to get all of this processed and into our pantry. But I'm doing this because it makes it shelf stable. It saves some canned goods that otherwise would have been trashed. And according to the recipe, I will process this for 55 minutes or 85 minutes for quarts, 55 minutes for pints, and it would be a 10-pound pressure for my altitude. So I've added okra in here, and it's about 8 cups of okra. And all my other vegetables in here. And everything has been doubled in the recipe except the tomatoes, and I added some extra vegetables in the water. So for a doubled recipe, it'd be 16 cups of tomatoes, or 1 gallon of tomatoes chopped up, 12 cups of peeled potatoes chopped, 12 cups of carrots cut into thick slices, 8 cups of cooked lima beans, 8 cups of corn, 4 cups of sliced celery, 4 cups of chopped onions, and 12 cups of water, and your salt and pepper. And I think I'm just going to put the salt in my jars like you would normally do with any vegetable, and not worry about salting the soup right now. But I got a good feeling that this is going to be tonight's supper. Okay, everybody, this is what it's looking like in my pot. And once we get it to the point that we're to can it, I will be back. We will need to boil this gently for 15 minutes on high heat to get it up to temperature, and then we will come back and we will get this into hot jars and a hot pressure canner, and I'll do some finagling on my counters to make room for this big pot to be moved, because the burner that it's on is the one I have to use for my pressure canner. Hey y'all, I had pulled my pot off, and that was a chore. And I've got my water heating in my pressure cooker, and I've got my lids heating, and we're going to get ready to can up 7 quarts of this and get it into my pressure cooker and start the first batch. Okay, I'm working in a very small space in my kitchen, and I don't have large countertops or a place that I can work readily from. So I'm going to be doing this kind of backwards. Y'all excuse the noise, but I have to get that off. And I am going to get my jars ready. I pulled out a measuring cup to pull out my soup. And we're going to get our jars with some salt. Now, quart jars would take a teaspoon. I'm using a half teaspoon to measure with, so we're just going to get this in the jars. And this is just plain old canning salt. I think I have pretty much used up all the Himalayan salt I had on hand. So we're going to put salt in there. I'm not even going to pepper this. I'm just going to put salt in there. We can pepper it when we take it out of the canner. And I think I'm going to have to stir my soup up to get some of them beans in there. And I'm probably going to have to take some of the juice off of it, because I think it said 1 inch headspace. I'll double check that real quick. It's 1 inch headspace. I'm gonna have to switch arms. My arm's hurting already. I'm going to do some adjusting on this before I go any further. Before I get to my headspace, I'm going to go ahead and debubble this and try to get some of these bubbles out. Now I'm going to just top off with some liquid. Well, I'm making a mess because I'm trying to do this the wrong direction. going to check my headspace. And I knew this one was going to be over. And they're all pretty good except for this one. Just going to take some vegetables out of that and throw it back in the pot. Alrighty. I'm going to wipe my rims with some vinegar and water. Some vinegar and a paper towel. Make sure it's good and clean. We're going to go get a lid and put on there. Go ahead and get my band started. Go to the next jar. Being careful not to touch the gasket or the rim. And I'm going to get these finger tight in just a moment. I want to get my bands on here. So far my rims are looking pretty clean. They're looking good. When you're doing a big batch like this, you need to take your time and make sure that you have your lid centered and you're not rushing it. And I'm holding my finger on the top of the lid so that when I put my band on, it stays centered. This one's a little off. Okay, we're going to tighten these up. Just finger tight. And I'm going to move my camera back so that you can see what I'm doing. Go ahead and get these loaded into the canner. These two, and then I'll finish the rest of them up and get them in my canner. Okay, I've got my canner loaded, and I'm going to attach my lid to my canner, and I'm going to vent it for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to allow it to get up to pressure and then time it for 85 minutes. After the 85 minutes is up, I'm going to turn my heat off, allow my canner to cool for 40 minutes according to Tfal's instructions, and then remove the lid. After that, I'm going to allow them to sit in there for an additional 5 minutes before I remove them. Okay, this is the first batch out of my pressure canner. And they are looking good. I have my second batch in there, and my third batch is in my oven, ready to go. This process takes approximately 2 hours per batch, so just be aware that it is going to be an all-day event if you do what I'm doing. All right, y'all, this was a 2-day process, and we have 28 quarts of vegetable soup that will be shelf stable and ready to go into our pantry, y'all. Can you imagine? And I can take this soup out and I can add to it. I can add beef to it, or chicken, or whatever I want to add to it. I can add some more tomato sauce, and I can add noodles or rice, and we will have a really good meal. We like to eat our vegetable soup with cornbread, cheddar cheese, and a side of the Old South lime pickles, and call it a meal. Or we might do a grilled cheese sandwich or some kind of sandwich with it. So these are all of our jars. Now, the ones I did yesterday, I've removed the rings from, and I just finished off the last 7 quarts. They're still bubbling over there. I'm going to get these all washed up, the ones that are cool, and get them labeled and into my pantry, and the rest of them will cool. And tomorrow morning I'll be removing the bands and washing them up and getting them prepared for our pantry. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video.